The massive silver chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversations as hundreds of alien beings discussed the day's business. Ambassador Velthon, a tall creature with 4 glowing eyes and sharp clicking sounds for speech, stood before a large floating screen showing different planets across the galaxy. His job was simple but important: assign terraforming missions to the various species under Council control. Today's problem was particularly challenging. The screen displayed a horrifying world called Kepler 438b, a planet so dangerous that it had already killed every species sent to colonize it. The radiation levels were 400 times stronger than what most life forms could survive. The gravity was so heavy it would crush the bones of weaker creatures. The air was poisonous, filled with chemicals that could burn through metal. Worst of all, the planet was home to strange crystal creatures that could dissolve almost anything they touched. Velthon clicked his teeth together, which was how his species showed amusement. 3 different alien races had tried to build colonies on Kepler 438b. The warrior race called the Karathi had sent their strongest fighters, but 89% died within the first month. The Zentari, famous for building incredible machines and cities, lost 94% of their colonists before giving up. The most recent attempt had been a complete disaster. Every single colonist died, and their rescue ships never even found bodies to bring home. The planet was a death sentence. Everyone in the Council knew it. But they needed someone to try again because Kepler 438b contained some of the rarest and most valuable minerals in the galaxy. These materials could power entire star systems and create technologies beyond imagination. The problem was finding someone foolish enough or desperate enough to attempt the impossible mission. That's when Velthon remembered the humans. Humans were a relatively new species in the galactic community. They came from a small blue and green planet called Earth, located in what most aliens considered a boring and unimportant part of space. The humans had only been discovered 50 years ago when they finally developed technology advanced enough to send signals beyond their own solar system. Since then they had been more trouble than they were worth. Humans asked too many questions. They wanted to know why certain laws existed and argued when they disagreed with Council decisions. They refused to follow simple orders without explanations. Worse yet, they had strange ideas about things like individual rights and democracy that made other species uncomfortable. Many Council members wished the humans would just quietly disappear. Velthon smiled, which was a frightening sight since his species had rows of sharp teeth. Sending humans to Kepler 438b would solve 2 problems at once. Either the humans would somehow succeed at the impossible task of colonizing the Deathworld, which would be useful, or they would die trying, which would eliminate a troublesome species. It was perfect. The assignment orders were prepared and sent to Earth within hours. The message was carefully written to sound like a great honor rather than a death sentence. It praised humanity's spirit of exploration and their innovative thinking. It mentioned the valuable resources waiting to be discovered and the important contribution humans could make to galactic civilization. It did not mention that every previous colonization attempt had ended in complete failure. On Earth, Captain Robert Hayes received the orders in his office at the International Space Colonization Authority. Hayes was a 45-year-old man with gray hair and tired eyes who had spent 20 years preparing humans for life among the stars. He had led 3 successful colonization missions to safer worlds and was respected throughout the human space program. As Hayes read through the mission details, he felt excited rather than worried. The radiation levels were high, but humans had dealt with radiation before. The gravity was strong, but their engineers had developed powerful mechanical suits that could help people move in heavy gravity. The poisonous atmosphere was a challenge, but they had atmospheric processors that could slowly change a planet's air over time. Hayes called his senior staff into the briefing room aboard humanity's newest and most advanced colony ship, the Endurance. Commander Emma Thompson, a brilliant tactical officer, reviewed the defensive requirements. Chief Engineer Michael Davis, who could fix anything and build the impossible, studied the technical challenges. Science Officer William Clark, whose job was to understand alien environments, analyzed the biological data. Class 0 Deathworld, Hayes read aloud from the official classification. Radiation levels 400 times Earth normal, gravity at 3.2 times standard, toxic atmosphere, hostile native life forms. He looked up at his team. They're paying us triple standard rates for this one. The alien liaison assigned to oversee the mission, a snake-like creature called Sylvan, watched the humans with growing confusion. In his 40 years of diplomatic service, he had never seen a species react to a death sentence with such calm professionalism. Most species would have immediately refused the assignment or demanded additional safety guarantees. The humans were discussing equipment modifications and supply requirements as if they were planning a difficult but routine construction project. "The Council considers this mission a valuable learning experience for your species," Sylvan said carefully, using the diplomatic language he had been instructed to employ. Hayes nodded and closed the mission file. "Understood. How soon can we launch?" 200 of humanity's best and brightest volunteers prepared for what they believed was their species' most important colonization contract. None of them knew they were being sent to die on a world where survival was considered impossible. The Galactic Council watched and waited for the inevitable distress signals that would mark the end of humanity's brief and troublesome presence in galactic affairs. The Endurance launched 3 weeks later, carrying hopes, dreams, and the unshakable human belief that any problem could be solved with enough determination and clever thinking. The Endurance dropped out of hyperspace after 3 months of travel, and the entire crew fell silent as they got their first real look at Kepler 438b. Through the ship's viewing windows, the planet looked like a nightmare made real. Massive electrical storms covered the surface in sheets of purple and green lightning. The atmosphere swirled with poisonous clouds that changed color from sickly yellow to deep red. Even from orbit, their radiation detectors were screaming warnings. "Well," Chief Engineer Michael Davis said quietly, staring at the readings on his instruments, "they certainly weren't lying about the death part." Captain Hayes stood on the bridge, his experienced eyes taking in every detail of their new home. He had seen dangerous worlds before, but nothing quite like this. The planet's surface looked like it was constantly at war with itself. Volcanoes erupted regularly, sending streams of lava across continents. The oceans boiled with strange chemicals that glowed in the darkness. "Time to earn our pay," Hayes announced to his crew. "Begin landing procedures." The first shuttles reached the surface 6 hours later, carrying the advanced team and emergency equipment. Commander Emma Thompson led the ground mission, her military training keeping her calm even as the shuttle's hull began heating up from radiation exposure during the descent. The moment they landed, problems began. The planet's native life forms appeared within minutes of touchdown. They looked like giant bears made of living crystal, each one standing 8 feet tall and covered in sharp, glowing spines. But these creatures were far more dangerous than any bear. When the first one touched the shuttle's titanium hull with its claws, the metal began dissolving like sugar in hot water. "Fall back to the ship," Thompson shouted over the radio as her team retreated. The crystal creatures followed them, leaving trails of dissolved metal and stone wherever they stepped. Within an hour, 3 crew members were in the medical bay with severe radiation sickness despite wearing the most advanced protective suits Earth could build. Dr. Patricia Bennett, the colony's chief medical officer, worked frantically to save the lives of her patients. The radiation was attacking their bodies in ways she had never seen before. Normal treatments were not working. Traditional medicine was useless against this level of exposure. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Velthon waited patiently for news. His staff monitored all human communications, expecting to receive a desperate call for help within days. Every other species had lasted no more than 2 weeks on Kepler 438b. The humans, despite their reputation for stubbornness, would surely recognize the impossible situation and beg for evacuation. But the distress call never came. Instead, something remarkable began happening on the planet's surface. Dr. Bennett made the first breakthrough by accident. While searching for ways to treat radiation sickness, she remembered reading about certain bacteria that lived in Earth's most extreme environments. These tiny organisms thrived in places where nothing else could survive: deep ocean volcanic vents, nuclear reactor cores, and areas with deadly radiation levels. Working in her makeshift laboratory, Dr. Bennett began experimenting with cultures of these extremophile bacteria. Instead of trying to block the radiation completely, she wondered if she could help human cells process it more efficiently. The idea was crazy, but desperate times called for desperate measures. "Radiation poisoning is just another form of stress on the body," she explained to Captain Hayes as she prepared her first test treatment. "And humans are incredibly good at adapting to stress. We just need to give our bodies the right tools." The treatment worked better than anyone had dared hope. Within days, the radiation sickness patients were not only recovering but actually showing improved health in some areas. Their bodies were learning to use the planet's deadly radiation as a source of energy rather than fighting against it. Chief Engineer Davis solved the crystal creature problem through a combination of observation and creative thinking. Instead of viewing the beings as enemies to be destroyed, he began studying their behavior patterns. He noticed that the creatures only attacked when they were hungry, and they seemed to prefer certain types of metal over others. "They don't attack if you feed them iron or Davis reported to Hayes with obvious excitement. And their acid is perfect for mining operations. They can extract rare earth elements from rock faster and more efficiently than any machine we've ever built. Within weeks, Davis had designed a feeding system that kept the crystal creatures satisfied with regular meals of common metals while directing their natural abilities toward useful mining work. The creatures, it turned out, were quite intelligent and could learn simple commands when properly motivated. The first monthly report from the colony reached the Galactic Council exactly 30 days after landing. Velthon read it 3 times before believing what he was seeing. Colony status, stable. Population, 200, all accounted for. Infrastructure, expanding according to schedule. Mining operations, ahead of projected targets. Recommendation, send additional supplies for Phase 2 expansion. The report included detailed photographs of humans working on the planet's surface in modified protective gear, crystal creatures being used as living mining equipment, and underground facilities that were growing larger each day. Most shocking of all were the medical reports showing that humans were not just surviving the radiation, they were adapting to it. The Galactic Council had expected to plan a memorial service for the human species. Instead, they found themselves staring at progress reports that exceeded anything achieved by far more advanced civilizations on much safer worlds. Something was very, very wrong with their understanding of humans. 1 year after the first humans landed on Kepler 438b, the colony had grown beyond anyone's wildest dreams. What started as a desperate collection of underground shelters had become a bustling industrial complex that stretched across 12 square kilometers of the planet's surface. The population had exploded to over 1,000 people as more volunteers arrived from Earth, eager to be part of humanity's greatest adventure. Captain Hayes walked through what the colonists now called the Green Dome, a massive transparent structure where Earth plants grew alongside strange new crops they had developed on Kepler. The sight still amazed him every day. Plants that should have died instantly in the deadly radiation were not just surviving but growing faster and stronger than anything they had ever seen on Earth. Dr. James Mitchell, the colony's lead plant scientist, guided Hayes through rows of towering corn-like plants that reached nearly twice the height of normal Earth varieties. The leaves glowed with a soft blue light, and the grain they produced was packed with nutrients that did not exist in normal food. The radiation isn't killing our crops, Mitchell explained, his voice filled with excitement. It's actually helping them grow. These plants are using the planet's deadly energy like Earth plants use sunlight. They're growing 3 times faster than normal and producing food that's more nutritious than anything we've ever created. Hayes stopped beside a section where Earth vegetables grew next to alien plants. Tomatoes the size of watermelons hung from vines, while strange purple fruits that tasted like a mixture of apples and cinnamon grew on trees that seemed to be part plant and part crystal. The local soil contains minerals we've never seen before, Mitchell continued. When we mix it with earth seeds we get these amazing hybrid plants. Some of them actually need the high radiation to survive. Take them to a normal world and they would die. Chief Engineer Michael Davis had made even more impressive discoveries in the mining sector. The crystal creatures that had initially terrorized the colony were now an essential part of their industrial operations. Davis had learned to communicate with them using a combination of sounds, light signals and chemical markers. They're not just randomly dissolving metal, Davis explained to Hayes as they watched a group of the creatures working in a massive underground mine. They're incredibly smart. Give them the right instructions and they can extract specific minerals while leaving everything else untouched. The creatures worked with precision that amazed human engineers. They could dissolve rock to create perfect tunnels, extract rare metals without damaging the surrounding stone, and even help build structures by shaping materials with their natural acids. What had once seemed like a deadly threat had become humanity's greatest industrial advantage. Commander Emma Thompson, now bearing the official title of Colonial Administrator, reviewed the latest production reports in her office overlooking the main settlement. The numbers were staggering. The colony was producing rare minerals, advanced materials, and energy sources that were making them wealthy beyond imagination. We're shipping out more valuable materials in a month than most established colonies produce in a year, Thompson told Hayes during their weekly meeting. The Galactic Council is starting to ask questions about how we're achieving these results. The most remarkable changes were happening to the humans themselves. Dr. Patricia Bennett had been studying the colonists' health for months, and her findings challenged everything medical science thought it knew about human biology. The people born here are different, Bennett explained to Hayes as they visited the colony's medical center. Not just adapted to the radiation but actually improved by it. Their bones are denser, their muscles are stronger, and their immune systems work better than anything we've seen on Earth. Hayes looked through the window of the nursery where a dozen babies slept peacefully. These children had been born on Kepler 438b, and they could survive radiation levels that would kill adult humans from Earth within minutes. They grew faster, learned quicker, and showed remarkable resistance to disease and injury. It's like the planet is helping us evolve, Bennett continued. The radiation that kills other species is somehow triggering beneficial genetic changes in humans. These children will be able to thrive in environments that would be impossible for their parents. The technological innovations were equally impressive. Human engineers had learned to work with the planet's unique properties to create materials and energy sources that defied conventional physics. They built generators that ran on radiation, created alloys that grew stronger under extreme conditions, and developed manufacturing processes that used the planet's hostile environment as a tool rather than fighting against it. The monthly reports sent to the Galactic Council grew more impressive with each passing month. Industrial output was up 400% compared to initial projections. The population was growing steadily through both immigration and births. Most importantly, the humans were not just surviving but thriving in conditions that had destroyed every other species. Hayes stood on the observation deck of the main administration building, looking out over a city that glowed with its own inner light. Humans moved freely across the surface wearing lightweight protective gear that would have been useless a year ago. Children played in parks where the ground itself sparkled with radioactive minerals. The crystal creatures worked alongside human engineers, their alien intelligence helping to solve problems that had puzzled scientists for decades. We're not terraforming this planet, Hayes realized as he watched the bustling activity below. It's terraforming us. The transformation was complete. Humanity had not conquered Kepler 438b through force or superior technology. Instead, they had learned to dance with a deadly world, adapting and changing until they became something new and magnificent. The Galactic Council would soon discover that they had not sent humans to their deaths. They had helped create something far more powerful than they could have imagined. Ambassador Velthon sat in his private office staring at the quarterly trade report with all four of his eyes wide open in disbelief. The document in front of him showed numbers that should have been impossible. Kepler 438b, the death world where he had sent humans to die, was now listed as one of the top 10 most productive colonies in the entire galaxy. The export manifest made his head spin. Rare isotopes that could power entire star systems for decades. Advanced biotechnology that could heal diseases other species had considered incurable for centuries. Energy crystals that his own scientists claimed could not exist under natural conditions. Most disturbing of all, the humans were producing these materials faster and cheaper than colonies that had been established for hundreds of years. Velthon clicked his teeth nervously as he read the financial reports. The human colony was becoming incredibly wealthy. They were buying advanced starships, setting up trade agreements with dozens of species, and investing in research projects across the galaxy. This was not supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to be dead. The Galactic Council had no choice but to take action. An emergency meeting was called, and the decision was made to send an official investigation team to find out what was really happening on Kepler 438b. The team would be led by Inspector Core 23, a cybernetic being whose species had tried and failed to colonize 17 different death worlds over the past 1,000 years. Inspector Core 23 was the perfect choice for the mission. Half of his body was mechanical, designed to survive in the most extreme environments. His optical sensors could see through radiation storms, his armor could withstand crushing gravity, and his analytical mind could process information faster than most organic beings. If anyone could figure out how the humans were achieving the impossible, it was him. The investigation team expected to find a few hundred desperate humans hiding in underground bunkers, barely surviving through luck and stubbornness. Instead, their shuttle was guided to a landing platform by human-operated spacecraft that should not have been able to function in Kepler's deadly electromagnetic field. The landing platform itself was built from materials that registered as unknown composition on their advanced scanners. The metal seemed to absorb radiation rather than being damaged by it, and the structure showed no signs of wear despite being exposed to conditions that would destroy most galactic technology within days. Governor Robert Hayes met the investigation team at the landing platform. The humans had elected him to lead their government, a concept that confused most alien species who preferred being ruled by their strongest or smartest members. Hayes wore a simple environmental suit that looked like it was made from lightweight fabric, yet their sensors showed it provided protection equal to military-grade armor. "Welcome to New Manchester," Hayes said with a smile, gesturing toward the horizon where gleaming towers stretched as far as the eye could see. Current population, 47,000 and still growing every day. Inspector Core 23's mechanical brain struggled to process what his optical sensors were showing him. The city was massive, far larger than any colony should have been after only 2 years. Humans moved freely across the surface in minimal protective gear. Children ran through parks where radiation levels would kill most galactic species instantly. The crystal creatures that had destroyed previous colonial attempts were being used as living construction equipment, working alongside humans like trained animals. "This is impossible," Core 23 said, his voice modulator unable to hide his shock. "Our records show that every species sent to this world has died within months. How are you not only surviving but thriving?" Dr. Patricia Bennett, now an elderly woman but still vibrant with health, joined the group to answer their questions. Her hair had turned silver, but her eyes sparkled with the energy of someone half her age. The radiation that should have aged her rapidly seemed to have had the opposite effect. "We stopped fighting the planet," Bennett explained simply. "Every other species that came here tried to force this world to become something it's not. They built barriers against the radiation, fought the native creatures, and tried to change the atmosphere to match their home worlds. We did the opposite. We learned to work with Kepler instead of against it." The investigation team spent 3 days touring the colony, and each day brought new impossibilities. They visited factories where humans worked alongside alien creatures in perfect harmony. They saw farms where plants grew in soil that should have been too poisonous to support any life. They observed children who could survive radiation exposure that would be fatal to their own parents. Most shocking of all were the medical reports. The humans were not just surviving the deadly conditions, they were being improved by them. The colonists lived longer, grew stronger, and showed remarkable resistance to diseases and injuries. Some of the children born on Kepler could survive in pure vacuum for several minutes, their bodies having adapted to conditions that would kill any other known life form. Inspector Core 23's final report to the Galactic Council was 700 pages long and contained a single, terrifying conclusion. Humanity was not just another species struggling to survive in a hostile galaxy. They were something entirely different, something that could turn any world into a paradise regardless of how dangerous it seemed to everyone else. The report triggered the greatest crisis in Galactic Council history. If humans could transform a Class 0 death world into a thriving metropolis, what did that make them? And more importantly, what did that make every other species in the galaxy? The balance of power was about to shift in ways no one could have predicted. The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so crowded or so tense. Representatives from 247 different species filled every seat, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, hisses, electronic beeps, and electromagnetic pulses. The emergency session had been called after Inspector Core 23's shocking report about the human colony, and now everyone wanted answers. Ambassador Velthon stood in the center of the chamber, no longer holding his prestigious title after what the council called his catastrophic miscalculation. His 4 eyes darted nervously around the room as holographic images from Core 23's investigation played above the assembled representatives. The images showed human cities thriving under radiation storms, children swimming in pools of liquid that would dissolve the strongest alien armor, and industrial complexes that outproduced entire star systems. "The implications are clear," announced Prime Chancellor Hex 7, the Council's supreme leader whose metallic voice echoed through the chamber. "We have underestimated this species by several orders of magnitude." The assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as the holographic display showed human children playing games in areas where radiation levels exceeded anything most species could survive even with full protection. Workers moved freely across the planet's surface, laughing and talking as if they were on a pleasant vacation rather than the most dangerous world in known space. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. Chief Xenologist Dr. Zarakel, a brilliant scientist whose species had been studying alien life forms for over 1,000 years, stepped forward with a data pad that would change everything. Her research had uncovered something that had been buried in bureaucratic files for decades, marked with a simple notation that no one had bothered to cross-reference with human colonization efforts. "Honored representatives," Dr. Zarakel announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "I have discovered something that explains the human success on Kepler 438b. Something that should have been obvious from the beginning." She activated her holographic display, showing the original survey data of Earth from when humans were first discovered 50 years ago. The information had been collected by automated probes and filed away without much attention from Council scientists who were more interested in studying advanced civilizations than primitive worlds. "Earth," she said, pausing for dramatic effect, "is classified as a Class 2 death world." The chamber erupted in chaos. Creatures that communicated through sound began chittering and clicking frantically. Species that used electromagnetic signals filled the air with bursts of shocked energy. The few telepathic beings in attendance projected waves of disbelief that made sensitive species physically uncomfortable. Prime Chancellor Hex, 7 called for order, his metallic voice cutting through the noise. Explain this classification immediately. Dr. Zarakel brought up Earth's environmental data on the main display. Deadly solar radiation that requires a complex atmospheric shield to survive. Extreme weather patterns including massive storms, floods, and temperature variations. Gravity levels that would crush smaller species. Most significantly, the planet is home to millions of predatory life forms, many of which hunt and kill for survival rather than peaceful coexistence. She paused, letting the information sink in before delivering the final blow. According to our classification system, Earth should be uninhabitable. The fact that humans consider it their comfortable home world means that what we call a death world is actually their preferred living environment. The implications hit the assembled representatives like a physical force. If humans came from a Class 2 death world and had transformed a Class 0 death world into a paradise, then they were not just another species struggling to survive in a hostile galaxy. They were apex predators from a nightmare world that most civilized species would avoid at all costs. Back on Kepler 438b, Governor Hayes received the formal transmission from the Galactic Council 3 days after the emergency session. Ambassador Emma Thompson, who now held the title of Humanity's representative to the Galactic Council, stood beside him as he read the message aloud to the assembled colonists in New Manchester's Central Plaza. The Galactic Council formally invites humanity to join as a dominant species with full colonial and territorial rights throughout Council space. Hayes read, his voice carrying clearly across the crowd of nearly 50,000 humans who had gathered to hear the announcement. A cheer went up from the assembled colonists, but Hayes raised his hand for silence. There was more. Additionally, 73 member species have submitted formal requests for human assistance in terraforming projects on worlds previously considered impossible to colonize. The Council offers humanity unlimited expansion rights and asks only that we share our terraforming techniques with species facing extinction due to dying home worlds. The crowd erupted in celebration, but Hayes wasn't finished reading. The final paragraph of the message would be quoted in xenobiology textbooks for centuries to come. We apologize for our initial misconceptions about your species. We now understand that what we considered a death sentence was actually a routine assignment for beings of your capabilities. The Galactic Council looks forward to a long and prosperous relationship with humanity. Hayes folded the message and looked out over the cheering crowd. His final words would become legend throughout the galaxy. It seems we've been thinking about this all wrong. We thought they were testing us to see if we were worthy of joining their civilization. Turns out, we were testing them to see if they were worthy of joining ours. In the years that followed, humans would transform 127 death worlds into thriving colonies, establish the galaxy's most advanced terraforming industry, and become the species that other civilizations called when they needed the impossible made possible. The Galactic Council would eventually rename their world classification system, with Class 0 death worlds becoming known as human standard environments.